Okay, what is going on, Theology fam? It's your girl Maya Wilson, and I am here with a lovely, lovely guest that I'm so excited for. Would you please introduce yourself to the Theology audience, please?
Yes, so my name's Caroline Schandel, and I'm a pastor at a church here in Atlanta, and I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and yeah, love what I get to do.
Awesome, awesome. And you're like a world traveler. Every time I look up, Caroline is like in a different
I
place.
do love to travel, yes.
Where in the world is Caroline Schandel? This whole month, we're kind of talking to a lot of different moms, and I just wanted to kind of hear your motherhood story. Was motherhood what you expected? Was it different? Was it more or less? Like, tell us about your motherhood journey.
I really didn't know what to expect. I have always wanted to be a mom. I think that was a deep desire of my heart. And I met my husband later than I would have preferred, which is probably a lot of women's stories. Like, there was a long season of waiting and hoping and
Mhm.
waiting some more. And then I was probably surprised by the journey of becoming a mom and how much it has changed who I am and also launched me into being probably at the core so much of who I've
Mm.
always dreamt of being. But it was a messy ride. It's still a messy ride. I feel like I'm always having my head in seven different places trying to figure out how to do the things that matter most well. But everything changed the minute that my daughter was born. I have three kids, ages 10, 8, and 6. And she took her first breath, and I see it in a lot of ways like I took my first one of just being
Mhm.
something so new, of what God did in my life by becoming a mom. So
That's so beautiful. I love that. You mentioned that you kind of felt like you stepped into more of like the capacity of who you are as Caroline. Could you kind of talk about like maybe how motherhood kind of freed you up to kind of realize some of the passions that maybe you hadn't pursued before having kids?
yeah, motherhood, gosh, it placed probably a demand on my life to
Mm,
become really true and serious about what I wanted to do with my life and time in ways that probably before I just wasn't really like about it as much. And so I think in becoming a mom, um, realizing how limited space or time is and how precious it is. And so giving so much thought to, am I spending what I have in the ways that are the best investment, whether it's in, I mean, specifically, in being a pastor of like with the gifts that God has given me, am I taking it seriously? Am I trying to like steward it well, what I've been given
mhm,
in the little pockets of time, not seeing it as like separate from being a mom, but also integrated. And so I think that was definitely part of it of just like, and then I think too, wanting motherhood to be an extension and a like, I'm coming more into who I am. I think so
mhm,
often the we can get this message to us as moms of how much gets like lost or has to
mhm,
be given up in motherhood. And for me, wanting to flip the script of this is like the best days and years I'm living right now, and I'm so aware of it. And it does come at a cost and a sacrifice, but it also comes with such joy and such honor to get to somehow figure out how can I continue to be the woman that God has created me to be
mhm,
from the very beginning of time. And how can I do that? How can I mother in a way that's true to who I am? How can I
mhm,
push out the noise that just doesn't serve me or my family well?
mhm,
How can I, yeah, show up to these little lives and really, I think oftentimes I say this a lot, just even in pastoring to other people, and I say it so much because I think about it so much in my own life. But like, what is the story I want to tell of the season I'm in? And I often think about it as a way to like inform how I'm showing up in any season of, okay, there's so much that's going to be forever outside my control, but there are certain aspects of the story that I get to be a really active
mhm.
participant in telling that story. And so I think from the beginning of motherhood, there were certain things that I wanted to be sure were true about the story that I would get to tell and live with my kids that has helped inform a lot of what our life looks like in the season.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I agree with you there. I feel like there is a I don't know, it kind of worries new moms. Like I always am very wary of like how I talk, like the just wait conversation, that a lot of moms hear, like oh, you just wait until they're da 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 da, or you
Yes.
just wait until they're da da da. And I think sometimes people just, talk to just say something, but it does like kind of create this like anticipatory grief for a woman, like I'm waiting on the moment when motherhood is supposed to be bad or sorrowful. And obviously, we have those big emotions and feelings, of course. But I feel like the conversation around uh, loss around motherhood, like you do lose maybe like a season of your life, and you should grieve what it was like to, be a woman without children. But you gain so much by being a mother, and you gain so much perspective, I feel like. And what it sounds like, even for you, like urgency. I feel like when I had my first baby, I was like, we gotta go. It's go mode. We gotta go. Not in a sense of hurriness, but it's like life is short.
Yeah.
And we have to really value and prioritize and be intentional about that. Would if there's a woman listening and she kind of feels like she maybe is in those fresh postpartum days and it kind of feels like more loss than gain,
Hmm.
how would you encourage her to maybe reframe her thinking of like what you just said, like how to tell the story of this season in her life?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think a few things. I think being so mindful of how much noise is out
Mhm.
there in life, even well-intentioned voices that we love
Mm,
who are trying to inform us of what motherhood or this season has to look like or how to expect how difficult or trying it is. And again, to your point, like it's not that it isn't,
mm,
but being so, I mean, like as a mother, you really get the opportunity to be a woman who decides like what gets to come into my home and what doesn't. And
mhm,
what voices am I allowing to speak life and joy and faith into the season? And what voices, for as well-intentioned as they are, it is okay to just like respectfully not listen to them, right? Or like,
yeah.
what are you filling your mind with as you're scrolling social media of like standards you should be meeting as a mom in
Mm,
any season? And is that like just being so careful and on alert that what you're filling your life and your spirit with is life, because
mhm,
that's what plays out in motherhood. And I think if the messages we're receiving so often is how we're not measuring up or how everyone else is doing it better, it
mhm.
will inform how I play out motherhood to my kids. Like,
Yeah.
right? And so so that's one of the things that I think about a lot is like and especially in difficult seasons, like making sure the voices and the people you're spending time with are the ones that are breathing life and joy and hope into a season, even if it's really hard. I mean, postpartum, those hormones, the changes of life, the lack of sleep, there's so much that are just real elements to how difficult
Yeah.
I experienced that season to be. And so then just being really thoughtful, I like to think of it sometimes of like who's sitting at my table in a season,
Mhm,
like who gets a
mhm,
seat. And I may love a lot of people, but not everyone gets a seat at my table. And so really
mhm,
being thoughtful about who gets to sit here and who sits in this season may not be the people who sit in the next season, but
mhm.
we all have to have people who are speaking and listening and doing life with. But we got to be thoughtful about those voices. I think that's really empowering in motherhood. And then the other thing that I think often is there's a scripture in Joshua where God was talking to his people right before they crossed the Jordan River. And
Mhm.
there's this one little phrase I've taken with me in every season of motherhood, where he says to them essentially like, you need to follow the ark, the presence of God. And it says, because you've never been this way before. And
Wow.
I'm like, is that not the grace of God? Like,
Mhm.
you've never been this way. Just like God speaking to his people, I know that I'm leading you into a season and a land that you have not stepped foot in. And
Mm.
that never goes away in motherhood. Any season I'm in, I'm like, right now I have um, all my kids are in elementary school, and there are great joys with that, and there are whole new challenges with that. And so it's like, I have never done this season of motherhood before. And so
Mm.
I am a learner, learning how to parent, how to be a mom in this season. And so that gives me a lot of grace to
Mm.
remember, like, oh, I've never done this. And I think it can be tricky when we hold this expectation. Somehow we know how to do a season that we've never lived before. Like, you're
Mm.
like a new mom, you've never done this. This is
Yeah.
messy. There's a journey to figure it out, and that
Mhm.
doesn't go away. It doesn't matter what season you're in as a mom. There's always new things, and we need a
Yeah.
lot of grace for ourselves with it.
Yeah, that's so good. I'll never forget. I had a friend who was like, "Yeah, they don't send you home with the instruction manual after you leave the
Yes.
hospital." It's just like everybody's trying to figure this out. But that's so good. I mean, there is a lot of unhealthy pressure on us, especially women, just like you're supposed to know. It's like, I mean, my body birthed the baby, but my mind is like, I don't know what's happening.
Yes. Totally.
I
Yeah.
don't
No
know.
idea what I'm doing.
Yes, yes. So that's so good. That's such a good reminder. I wanted to talk a little bit about your pastoralship because we were at the church that you're pastoring at for a little bit, and y'all, when I said Caroline be preaching, she be going off. We got so excited when we saw Caroline. It's like, oh, Caroline preaching today. I wanted to talk a little bit because you said, you don't have to compartmentalize yourself when it comes to your ministry. Obviously, your first ministry is your family, your children, and then you're a pastor at a church. Can you kind of just talk about how like you don't like you can bring your whole self to both of those roles? You don't have to be like Caroline the mom, Caroline the pastor, Caroline the wife. Could you talk about kind of bringing your whole self to every kind of ministerial position that you have?
Yeah, I think the only way that I've really been able to continue to do it is because we do it together as a
Mhm.
family
Mhm.
and do it all together. And so um, that has been helpful and a constant learning thing because specifically with preaching, if I lived in my own little island, I would have my whole system and rhythms to how to do this as well as I would feel to get on stage on a Sunday morning, feeling the weight and the responsibility of a moment like that. But then that just doesn't happen. Like real life plays out. So, I
Mhm.
mean, very real life, even this last weekend, we had so many sports things our kids needed to be at. I was preaching on Sunday morning. And then in the mix of everything else, I literally sat down at my daughter's soccer game and I said to a friend next to me, I was like, man, I just like I'm at capacity today. I cannot do one more thing. And it did not take 3 minutes before my son gets injured and I'm off to the ER to get him stitched
Mhm.
up. And then I'm like, of course, like the night before I'm preaching, I'm hanging out at a children's hospital because this is real life
Oh,
and real life
yes.
doesn't stop in the middle of everything. And so, probably in certain seasons, I would feel like um, maybe coming into a Sunday morning then less equipped because I didn't get maybe as many study hours as I wanted. But when you see the Holy Spirit is always with you and God working through it all, and
Mm.
and the story I'm telling, even on a Saturday, is like that I'm being mom as best as I can right now. Now, I'm mom in an ER room with my sermon notes in my purse because you'll find me all weekend long holding this thing, carrying it with me in the real of my life. And I really do think there's a meaning behind it too of like, I just kind of take my notes with me all weekend. I kind of carry the ministry wherever we go. And so it just like happened to find myself in a hospital room on that Saturday night. But I think that's just like that's the real of it. And it makes it sustainable is just going with what the journey is on a day and
Mhm.
trusting God to move in the best ways between the work that I've tried to mine out in the quiet hours in the early mornings mixed with the real life where things get mixed up and you're like this is my offering. And so I'm bringing it to you as real as it can be for in the middle of all the real of the last weekend.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, your poor baby. I hope he's okay. Lord have mercy.
Yes. Yes, he's fine, but unexpected, just unexpected things
Yeah,
always pop up in the middle of our real lives.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I I I feel I feel like I heard you kind of say just, one, just being present is so important.
Yeah.
And also just like being okay with everything not being perfect.
Yes.
Because I don't know, I feel like like we said, how certain people feel like there is a pressure to like perform motherhood in a certain way. It's almost like we feel like there has to be a performance for faith too, or whether it's the practice of preaching and teaching and worship. It's like everything has to be great. I have to have my candles lit, like the worship music has to be playing in the background for my sermon prep. But a lot of times it's just we just have to go with it. And I just wonder, as in your role as I believe pastoral care is what, yes.
Hmm.
How do we kind of help disciple people through that of just like, hey, like you don't have to be perfect
Yeah.
to show up for the Lord, to show up for your community. Like how would you maybe speak to that? Because I feel like maybe we disqualify ourselves from a lot of ministry opportunities because it's not picturesque.
Yes. Yes. Part of what I often think though is like, I want people to know
Mm,
how real and untied up my life is.
mm,
Because if God can move through this little life with all that I cannot hold together on my own, I
mm,
wanted to breathe an expectation in their lives that He can do the same. And the worst thing would be for me to like be standing before people and then think that somehow I have figured out what they haven't. And so that there's like
mm,
a secret code to how to do ministry in your life when the real is like it is in exactly where you are and in the elements of all that it is that somehow in some way he moves and weaves the most beautiful story. And so I really do try to communicate that. Like on a Sunday morning, I'm trying to talk about the moments I'm missing it as a mom, or I'm not like, because that we all do that. And we want to know that that real people are still somehow experiencing God
mm,
um, and seeing him the move in the real places. And so I think that's really important is recognizing like in your present life as it is right now with all the elements you wish were different, maybe about you, about the circumstances around you, like God is at work in your life. And so part of it is being so present and open to the God who is with us and
mm,
practicing the presence of God. I think
mm,
about when I had little kids and I would practice connecting with the Holy Spirit in moments that my brain would be telling me there's no way that he's here. Like my kid is having a temper tantrum on the ground, and I
mm,
just would remember I would just take a breath and like in that moment before trying to fix things or react and just be like, Holy Spirit, I trust you are with me here. Or
mm,
like I would like be changing their diaper and be practicing giving thought to it as holy work I was doing in this moment. And I
mm,
think part of it is just retrain, like building our brains up and changing some of those thought connections to recognize that it is in the simplest moments that can have such deep ministry to them.
mm,
And the more that we can be present and awake to where God is right now, the more we will find him in all the places that are unexpected. And once you recognize, like, oh my gosh, in my real life
mm.
right now, you are here, you can't help but start sharing that with other people of
Yeah.
that's who he is. In the process and mess, somehow God moved in my day. And
Mm,
then you share that, and that starts to become an anticipation in other people's lives. Like, well, I guess if she could find him in the middle of the temper tantrum, I might be able to too. So that's how I
mm,
try to do is like the sharing of stories in the real of our lives that hopefully breathe an expectation to someone else. Like, oh, I
yeah.
guess just in my life as it is right now, he could be real and moving too.
That's so good. I love that. I feel like what you just said is so poignant because in the same way that, the negative talk spreads, the positivity and like the hey, come see the glory can also spread too. Because like you just said, like what we're listening to, if I hear one of my other friends being like sharing a testimony, then I'm like, okay, Lord, I hear you working in somebody else's life too. That's so good. At this time that we're having a conversation, it's Holy Week. It's not going to come out right at Holy Week, but I heard you just kind of mention a little bit just like presence and a little bit about God with us. And I feel like Jesus's incarnation, his like him walking around in a body means so much for our lives, but also just what it means to like just be a human being. So I'm gonna let you just have free reign, but I just want to hear just any reflections you have on just the incarnation of Christ and what it means for just being a mother, being a woman, being a follower of Christ, being a person, just what it means that like God walked in a body too for for us because I think this week I've been really reflecting on the fact that he was a human. Like we rushed through to the Sunday part because it's joyful, it's wonderful, but I just really have been reflecting this week. I'm like, oh my goodness, he was so grief stricken. His body felt so much pain. He felt betrayed, like all these very like human things. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you have your preach moment, Caroline. But I just want to just hear any reflections you have on just the realization that um, God was with us, but specifically was with us in a body.
Yes. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about this. I preached on Palm Sunday and was talking about the moment that Jesus enters in, and there's the palms and there's the cheers and uh,
Mm,
all the expectation that they had. And it was so misunderstood of who he'd be. They thought he was going to be this like national liberator, right? And he's riding in on a donkey, just really declaring in that moment how defenseless and vulnerable he was
mm,
as a king who would give his life. And he knew that. And he knew that in the
mm,
face of everyone else who completely could not grasp what it was that he was doing. And I think what I've been reflecting on a lot personally with it is like, he knew what was coming. He knew it. He knew he was going to Jerusalem to give his life.
mm,
And he stayed. And he stayed that day and he stayed that week. And I think about the moment with Judas betraying him and he calls him friend, knowing
mm,
the betrayal's there. And just the depth of love and the willingness to stay in the place that God had him be in order to finish the story. And I
mm,
think oftentimes the way I would flip it, because I've been thinking about this, is like how oftentimes the betrayal comes in our life, the pain comes, the sorrow comes, and we're like, I'm done, I'm out. And we just like
mm.
immediately want to remove ourselves from being in the place that we are. And of course, it makes sense where no one wants to be found in that place.
Yeah.
And I think on a week like this, knowing that through all of it, his yes to trusting in the will of his father was so great and so deep that he stayed through everything that came so that
Mm,
resurrection was the end of the story. And I think for so many of us, that would be the thing, the prophetic sense I offered to our church on Sunday, and I've just been thinking so much about it is like the staying power that as we follow him, like having staying power to trust that even though I can't see it, there's more to this than I know.
mm,
Even if this is the hardest moment of my life, this is not the final note of the story. And so if I can stay, and I don't mean stay to a place, and I don't mean stay in, toxic circumstances. I'm saying staying in the trust of a God who's still at work in your life, no matter where you are today, and believing that there's more to this. And I mean, what came was like, they just wanted like national freedom. And he's like, I am literally going to set you free and
mm,
give you resurrection life. Like, you have no idea the
mm.
story I am telling. And so I'm just so thankful for God because I am just down here and I'll see all the circumstances and I think I'll figure it out. And then I'm like, totally amazed by a God who will do immeasurably more than I could ever ask, think, or imagine. I'm like, that's who he is if
Mhm.
we just stay with him in this. So.
That's
I obviously could
good.
go on a long time, but I will stop there.
No, I mean, listen, I told you you can preach, so go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, I love that. It's so I used to I remember when I was growing up as a child in church and we used to like if something wasn't making sense, like elders would say like his ways are higher than my ways. And I felt like that was like a way to just kind of like shut us up. But I
Yeah.
feel like now in my adult life, I'm just like, yeah, Lord, I had no idea you wanted to do that. That was not even on my radar. I was thinking this needs to be done this way, and you were like, actually, something completely different has to happen here. And looking back, there's just testimony and testimony of that over and over. Um, I wanted to kind of close this out here, but I I wanted to I just want you to keep talking, Caroline, because you're so good. But I we just kind of talk about the incarnation. I wanted to kind of let you end on just thinking about um just mothers in the faith. I don't know what I was watching, but I saw just a reflection of over Mary and just about the reality that when she had Jesus and she went into the synagogue when he was a young child and hearing the prophecy about like, yeah, like your son is going to suffer greatly. And just that reality as she mothered, like knowing that one day, like her son obviously was so special and was the Messiah, but she was going to suffer greatly because of it. And I think there is this tension of in motherhood of just this hope and this like this is going to be so glorious and God is going to use my family, but also know that like the journey to that may have a lot of suffering and pain. Could you maybe speak to that and also just like how you would encourage other mothers who are feeling that tension of both like sorrow but also hope in moments where they're like, I believe God is going to do something special in my life and the life of my child, but also our circumstances right now are less than ideal.
Yeah. I think they both can be held at the same time.
Mm,
I'm so thankful for that, that I can be very in touch and in tune with the sorrow I may have over my child and where we find ourselves. And I have certainly been there where I have just had such a sorrowful heart over illness or over circumstances. And I mean, the only place that I know to turn is to the hope that God is at work or is moving far beyond what I can see in a moment. And I think that's such an honor as a mother to somehow be able to hold both and to hold both well and honestly
mm,
for wherever our children are. And and you know, I loved one of the things that Mary sang in her song when she knew she was having Jesus. I've always thought about this. She was so young when she found out what was coming for her life. And
mm,
I just, that is mind blowing to me. But she says this phrase in it, and she's like, from now on. And it's like
mm,
this woman sings this song that like is such a prophetic declaration
mm,
of what her child would bring forth and what God would do in the life of
mm,
her generation and in the life of the world through this.
mm.
And I also just, I mean, when I think about the moments, because we have been in some hard moments, as we all have, and the honor it is as a mother to be able to prophetically declare what you do not see right now, but you believe that God will still do. Recognizing your words have life, they
Yeah.
have power to them. I mean, we have got to be so, I think about this so much. In Proverbs 18, it says um, that there's the power of life and death
Mhm.
on the words that we speak. The message says they're either poison or fruit, you choose. And
Mm,
I'm like, I've got to be a woman. I want to be a woman. I want to be a woman who can always speak forth words of life and blessing
mm,
over my kids. And I'm so thoughtful about that. Of
mm,
even the words like uh, just being so thoughtful about what you speak over your child in any season that are words that lift them higher,
yes.
not pull them down. The words that are like shame off of you. Like
Mm,
I'm always wanting to be a voice because I think that's how I've experienced the voice of God in my life. The
mm,
God is not someone who's like, shame on you, Carolyn. You should have known better. No
mm,
way. He's like, shame off of you, child. You are
mm.
forgiven and set free. Go run and soar in the things I have over
Come
and
on,
again. And
yeah.
so thinking with my kids, I'm like, yeah, I'm not like shooting them about things. I'm like, kid, let's remember again who you are and
Mm,
how God has made you, and you go run free
mm,
in that. And so I just think even in hard moments, like we can have eyes to what is and be able um to just through the words and our prayers and our presence, like be women who are
mm,
just like, I'm gonna call you higher, I'm gonna call you into the more like even as we were talking about Jesus, his ways are so much higher and his feet were on the ground. And I'm like, this is who he
wow.
is. He walked the path.
Wow.
His friend betrayed him. He
Mm,
felt that pain and sorrow. And he his mind and his eyes were so much greater than what was seen. And
mm,
so I think any moment we're in partnership with him, it's like our feet are on the ground. We're not detached from reality. We're not living in a fantasy world. Like hard things are in our real lives.
mhm.
And what does it look like to have the faith, the hope, the trust that God is not done and is still at work? And I think that's the joy of motherhood is like we somehow get a hold at both. And then we get to be a peace and a presence and a voice that's like, no matter what you do, I know who you are. You're an amazing kid. And just getting to be that voice in their life over and again is, I think that's the joy for me. I like, that's the joy is like
Yeah.
getting to be in that place, you know? And
Yeah.
I think too, like, I've had to continue to remember like I can't control the story. I can really just trust in God. And
Mhm.
so I want to control because I have fears like every other mom of how things
Yeah.
turn out or did I teach them whatever. We all have our fears. And fears then, if we let them override, will turn into control. And then we're
Yes.
going to get over controlling.
Mhm.
And then and I'm like, I don't want to be so focused on their behavior as much as their hearts. I'm like, if we can get
Mhm.
to the heart stuff, if we can
Yeah.
get really deep in there, the rest just will flow from that. And so I
That's so
often think about
good.
that of like, how do we keep cleaning out our heart, getting
Mhm.
free, moving past so that like we're just the rest of it comes from that place. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's so good. I told y'all she'd be preaching. Lord have mercy. Caroline, thank you so much. This was such a fruitful conversation. It blessed me. If people want to find you, you are also an author as well. Put some respect on her name. So where can the people find you? Where can they find your writing? All the things. Just go ahead and this is your plug moment.
Oh, well, you can find me on Sunday mornings at Grace Midtown Church in Atlanta, and you can find sermons there posted on their website. And then, I mean, Caroline Schandel at Instagram. I'm not doing a lot over there, but I am there, so you can find me there if you want to find me. And yeah, and other seasons of life I had, I wrote a book. I had a podcast for a while. Maybe I'll bring it back at some point. So
Yeah.
there's still old podcast episodes that exist on all of that. But that's probably the best place is just Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Caroline. I really appreciate you being a guest today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Of course.